I'm Grylls, and I've got to take some of the biggest celebrities, Hollywood stars, from prime ministers to presidents, out into the wild, into some of the great extremes of planet Earth. I'm going to show you how to survive in some of the toughest places and some top tips to stay alive from deserts, jungles to mountains. And above all, how to handle things when everything goes wrong. I've been lucky to take some incredible people into some of the world's great deserts, from Michelle Rodriguez in Red Rock Country, Nevada, through to Tiffany Haddish in some of the Canyonlands in Utah. I think often these sort of people arrive as rookies into an environment like the desert that is notoriously unforgiving, hot, often high, so you're dealing with elevation as well. And it can be quite an intimidating environment, obviously, because you've got all the snakes, tarantulas.
There's a tarantula, look.
That is a real tarantula.
Your enemy is the sun, and you're not going to win with dehydration or heat stroke. If you get that, you're in trouble. But when it comes to finding water, it's got to be your top priority. You're looking for areas of green, areas where water is going to pool and collect in the shade and evaporate slowly. Even patches of darker sand when you can dig down and often find a source of water. It's probably not going to be clean, so you're going to need to filter it. I've done that before with Natalie Portman, filtering through a pair of underpants.
We're going to filter sludge water through underpants.
Yeah.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. Really, you want to be boiling though water, especially if it's standing water in a little pool. In a lot of the canyons, you'll find little pools of protected water, but it's obviously going to be stagnant. Animals come to drink from it. Animals die in it. So if you drink it, even if it's clear, it's probably going to be contaminated with bacteria or parasites. So always boil the water if you can.
Gross.
Well, it's less gross than that.
But that's not like a high threshold to start from.
Yeah, it's all degrees, isn't it? Okay. Look at that, perfect.
Is it?
Sandstorms can be killers just because it becomes impossible to navigate and actually very hard to breathe. And once you get disoriented and you don't know which direction you're traveling and you try and fight the conditions and the wind, you're gonna lose. So really, you wanna hunker down. You gotta cover your face, your nose and your mouth, even if it's with rip a bit of a t-shirt, make it a bandana, and don't try and move. You're better off waiting it out. Sandstorms often fast and furious, but they move quickly. In extremity, I have had to shelter before from a sandstorm by cutting into a dead camel, using the carcass then to get out of that sandstorm, cover myself with the skin from the camel. It was a grim few hours, but it did the job. And I'd originally heard of a Berber tribesman in the Sahara Desert who saved his life by doing exactly that. I've learned over the years, always listen and learn from the indigenous people. They're the best survivors. So in the desert, number one, I'll be taking this, especially a metal one, because if metal, it means you can boil it, fill it up with water, boil it to make sure it's good to drink, and then you know you're good to go. On Running Wild, one of the first journeys we ever did was with Will Ferrell.
I think we'll take the edge off this Twinkie. Yeah, he won't care.
We took him to the tip end of Sweden, right on that Arctic Circle. I think out of all of the places I go to, I think Arctic is especially hard, especially if you get the wet sort of Arctic. When it gets really cold, all that moisture is dry, it's snow. But when you're on the borderline of that Arctic Circle, the conditions can go between freezing and just above freezing very quickly. Therefore, things get wet, clothes get wet, you sweat, you get wet, and then it freezes, then you're in trouble. In Arctic environments, before you start moving, strip down, go lightweight early. So you might start off a little cold, but it means you've got dry kit to put on later. Straight out of the tent, I'll take a lot of layers off, just a windproof, maybe one layer underneath and a windproof, then start moving. And then if you're sweating, a lot of that sweat evaporates away. And when you stop at the end of the day, you can put dry layers on and get warm. So the fire steel in the Arctic really means life. As long as you're near the tree line, even if it's damp, you're going to be able to eventually, with a little work, start a fire. Once you've got the fire going, you can dry out gear, you can boil water, you can melt snow and ice, you can survive. Fire in the wild is life. Matthew McConaughey did it like a pro.
The buzz is that you're just a little closer to the food chain and where you are in the food chain. And that's a natural high. I've always thought, if I die, if I go as part of the food chain, I just feel there's an elegance to that, man.
But you know what? So did also Uma Thurman. We were in the Welsh mountains in really wet, cold conditions. I just remember her hand shaking, trying to operate this, and it was like going, it wasn't working, and then boom, and that tinder goes and fire comes into life, and you start getting the kindling on it, and you suddenly realize now this is a game changer.
Okay, just leave that there. We'll build up to around it. Okay, let's get some more. Oh, that is nice though.
Maybe things have improved.
It's cost me a little bit of my dignity and my underpants.
That's a big sacrifice.
It's a small price to pay for. Well, well done, well done.
Once you have fire, you're then on the front foot again. Jungles are probably the most unforgiving of all of the terrains for the survivor. It's like sensory overload, whether it's the noise of the monkeys, then you've got all of the intensity of the rain, you got the heat, you got the humidity, and then you've got a zillion things in the jungle that is out to sting you, bite you, prick you, cut you, scratch you, scrape you, and kill you. I remember the first time I went to the jungle and reaching out for this tree and just needing to take a moment and just kind of rest for a second and reaching out and didn't look at the branch before I grabbed it. It's what soldiers always call the bastard tree, because when you grab it, it's these tiny little thorns that are like that long, but you can hardly see them, they're so thin. And unless you're really looking for it, it just looks like a normal branch. You grab it, and I've known it to go straight through people's hands. And then, of course, you shout out loudly, bastard! But it kind of feels like often everything in the jungle is like that. It's out to get you. So I've operated in jungles all over the world, from Belize to Borneo, you name it, Guatemala, Costa Rica. I think one of the things you've got to be especially mindful of is snakes. You get bitten by a highly venomous snake, you're not just in trouble, you're dead. Number one, good snake-proof boots. And move very considered. You know, it's why just charging through the jungle, you're not going to win. You're going to get snared up, you're going to get lost, you're probably going to get bit. So take your time, make your presence known. Heavy footfall is actually good. Snakes want to move out of your way. They'll often bite when you surprise them and they don't know you're coming. I'll often use a stick. If I'm worried about snakes in an area, I just make lots of noise in front of where I'm moving, clear snakes away. And I've been bitten by a snake before, and luckily it was a dry bite from a venomous snake. But even a dry bite, they always say, soldiers say, snakes don't brush their teeth. You know, there's going to be a ton of bacteria in a snake bite. So really you want to get it washed, you want to get antibiotics. Consider yourself lucky. If it's a dry bite with no venom, you're lucky. And the final top tip for the jungles is to keep a dry set of clothing, waterproofed in your backpack. And then when you go to make shelter in the evening and you get your poncho up and it might be raining all night, but you're under that in your hammock, you can then take your wet gear off, you can put dry gear on, you can powder your feet, you can give you any scratches or anything a chance to heal. But when everything is damp and humid, wounds fester, bacteria grows, things get infected. And you want to spend the whole night, if you can, in that dry set of clothes. And then in the morning, you have to do the wet, dry routine again. You have to take that off. You've got to do the horrible thing of putting wet clothes on and then get out, get into the day. But the mistake people make, they go, oh, I'm so nice in this dry clothes. I'll just start in the dry clothes. Invariably, they're wet, and then you've got 2 sets of wet clothes, then you're in trouble. If I was to take one tool into the jungle, it would actually be a machete, because with the machete, then you can start to make these things. You can make tools, you can make weapons, you can make shelters, you can make even little rafts to navigate down streams and rivers. You can cut bamboo, you can create friction fire. So now you've got tools, weapons, travel, transport, and fire. Now you're well resourced to get yourself out of there. If I had to pick one environment over the years that I've taken running wild guests to the most, it's probably the mountains. And there's something magical about mountains that draws all of us, I feel, as humans. There's that kind of innate appeal and intrigue about the mountains that is magnetic for me. But mountains are also dangerous, unforgiving places. Gravity is always going to win. You're only going to fall once. You can never get complacent. Do not take your eye off the ball and be prepared. I think one of the things that people often underestimate about the mountains is actually how hard it is coming down. If you think about it, going up is always feels more natural. It feels easier. Your direction of travel, you can see where you're putting hands and feet. And also the adrenaline is also pumping for going up. But coming down is often at the end of the day. You've done that summit, you're tired, the adrenaline is gone, the concentration lapses come in, and it's why so many of the accidents actually happen on the descent. And also when you're moving down, it's hard to see, where you're putting your feet. And then the final danger of the descent is where you can't actually see over what's ahead. And people often find themselves getting what they call rim rocked, where they're descending, and they then reach an area that is too steep or vertical. They realize they can't go on, and they turn around and try and go back. So now it's too steep to go up. I remember actually one of our first ever Running Wild guests, Deion Sanders, prime time, thought he was going to be okay with heights, but was just terrified. And we found ourselves in a situation where he just couldn't go on. But we also couldn't go down because of the kind of type of terrain. It was easier to climb up than to go down. And what should have been just like an hour turned into an absolute epic of a day to get him off this mountain. But credit to him, he kept going. He never gave up, overcame his fears, and we eventually made it out.
I just rappelled down a 60-foot cliff. Might have been more. By the time I finish telling the story, it's going to be 200 feet.
In terms of safety in the mountains, obviously a rope is always going to be king. But a rope is for much more than just climbing. Rope also allows you to build shelters. It allows you to set traps if you need to catch food. It allows you to get out of tricky situations like maybe you've got a little bit rim rocked, where you can't go down or can't go up without something to help you. And that something is often that rope. Ropes in the mountains saves lives. Everyone always thinks desert islands are wonderful, going to be full of resources and coconuts and nice sunbathing on the beach. They are often deserted islands for a reason. They're deserted because there's very little that can sustain human life on the majority of desert islands. Boiling hot conditions, very abrasive, very corrosive saltwater conditions to try and survive in, limited food, and no running water. And without water, in terms of survival, you're in trouble. If you are stranded on a desert island, you have to create water from the sea. You can do that with a solar still, where you dig a pit, you cover it and seal it with some plastic. Maybe it's a jacket or tarpaulin or some bits of plastic you scavenge. And then you put a little pot or water bottle or something to collect the water underneath. And then you can pee into that, and overnight that will heat up and create a humid environment. And then that condenses on the underside of that plastic and drips into that little container. It's small amounts, labor intensive, hard work. In terms of food on a desert island, you might be lucky and have a few coconuts if you're fortunate. If not, you got to go to the sea. And that's where you're fishing, you're using drag nets, maybe even spear fishing. Make a spear out of a bit of wood and go and try and hunt in the shallows for crabs or octopus or squid or fish. And there's little things often on desert islands, like I've come ashore without shoes on a desert island before and realized like all the sand is like razor sharp coral. Now you're trying to survive, but you can't move anywhere apart from like hobbling around. Now you're trying to make some improvised shoes out of some banana leaves strapped around you, but everything is hard and difficult. If I was to take one thing to a desert island, it would be a good blade. Because again, with the blade, you can make spears for fishing. You can make little hooks for fishing out of bones. Fishing line from just the fibers from trees. But you need a good blade for a lot of this. Also with a blade, you can then create tools to make fire, like friction fires or bow drills. You can make shelter. And maybe most importantly, you can collect catchment systems for rain. And ultimately, you're looking for rescue on a desert island. And a blade like this can reflect strong sunlight, and you can use as a mirror to angle that at a plane or a passing boat. So yeah, like as always with survival, so much of it is about being resourceful and using everyday items in different ways. You know, your brain is your greatest tool. Being resourceful, improvising, adapting is so key. So there you go, a whole bunch of little tips and tricks to help you stay alive, whether you're in a desert island, on the jungle, in the mountains, in the Arctic, or in the desert. Remember, ultimately, it's about having that never give up spirit. Thinking smart, being resourceful, but ultimately being tenacious, never say die, never give up.